So warm welcome to scope management and schedule management. My name is Ramesh. I've done my PMP, then PMI ACP, that is Agile certification, ISTQB, you can call this is some sort of a PMP for testing, and CIB, this is my domain certification. Let's discuss about project scope management. What is basically scope? Okay, for example, I'm writing using this pen, isn't it? What does a pen do? It performs set features, right? It is able to draw, right? And it supports so many colors. It has to be ported with so and so an application, isn't it? So it does some features. So that is what is called a scope. Then how do we deliver the scope? We come with a project. We gather requirements from the stakeholders. Okay, then we prototype this pen, then test the prototype, then send it to manufacturing. Then manufacturing department starts manufacturing pens in large numbers. Okay, so the project management processes we perform, like collecting requirements, planning, scheduling, budgeting. Okay, so all these are called as project scope. So there are two aspects to scope: project scope and product scope. That is what we're going to see. See, product scope and project scope. Product scope refers to features for a product, right? Project scope refers to the project management activities that you perform in order to deliver a prototype to manufacture a pen. Okay, so let's have an overview of this scope management process overview. In this process, these discussions are based on a project management body of knowledge. You call them PMBOK, project management body of knowledge, right? So this is brought out by PMI. Okay, so all the discussions flow from this project management body of knowledge. This is a book, this is a guide how to run projects. It contains best practices. Fine. So here you have a topic called scope management, knowledge area. I call that knowledge area. So how do you plan for scope? So these are all the processes we need to perform. First, we have to plan for scope management, right? Then we have to collect requirements. Then based on the requirements, we have to define scope. What are requirements? Requirements are what the customers expect to find in a product. Okay. Then based on the requirements, we define scope. That is, we come with a scope statement that tells us everything that we have to deliver as part of the project. Okay. Then we create WBS, this scope statement. Okay, in this process, we come with a scope statement and define scope. This scope statement would be descriptive. It could be in text form. Well, if you give a document that runs to hundreds of pages to team members to start delivering, they'll not know where to start. Okay, what the dependencies are. So in a manner that is understandable to them, you break it down into a tree form. Okay, you break it down into tree form and you say, John, this is your work package, plan to deliver it. Jack, this is your work package, plan to deliver it. So in Create WBS, we break down the work into a work breakdown structure. Okay, and validate scope refers to getting the scope formally accepted by customer. Okay, for example, if we are prototyping this pen, we have to get this pen accepted, the prototype accepted by the stakeholders. Okay, that is called as validate scope. Fine. And the last process is control scope. Okay, control scope is a process of comparing what we plan to deliver with what we actually delivered. Okay, there could be variances. We'll see how to manage them. This is about scope management. Fine. Now let us analyze these processes in detail one by one. Okay. So the first process is plan scope management. So what do we do here? We come up with a scope management plan. So what is a scope management plan? There's a process of creating, plan scope management is a process of creating a scope management plan that documents how the project and product scope will be defined, validated, controlled. Define is how we define the scope, how we decide what features and functions it should support. Validation is how we get it accepted by the customer. Okay, so it provides you guidance on how to manage scope. That is what it means. Okay, now there is a description of this process, plan scope management. See, I was talking to you about project management body of knowledge of PMI, isn't it? It is what we discuss is based on that. So there are totally 49 processes in this project management body of knowledge, and each of these processes are defined using a particular template. Okay, these templates are like inputs, tools and techniques, outputs. I can give you a small example. See, if you have to make coffee, what do? We first use inputs. What are the inputs like? We have sugar, cream, coffee powder, isn't it? Those are the inputs, right? What are the tools and techniques we use? Stove, boiling. Okay, those are the tools and techniques. So what is the output of this process? Output is cups and cups of hot coffee, isn't it? So all these 49 processes are used described using this familiar template. That is inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. So this process is called plan scope management. So let us see what are the inputs that go into this process, what are the tools and techniques we use, and finally, what is the output that we get out of this process. Okay, so the first process, plan scope management. Okay, well, the input for that is we are discussing inputs, no? So what is the first input? The first input is project charter. Okay, just in case you do not know what a project charter is, let me tell you. Project charter is a document that actually initiates a project. Okay, so as soon as a business decides to commission a project, as soon as an organization gives an approval to launch a project, the project manager is informed. The project manager uses a business case. Okay, business case is some sort of a decision support tool that organizations process in order to fund a project. Okay, a business case is put up by the business, and once it is approved, that business case becomes a basis for writing a project charter. So the project manager conducts interviews with stakeholders, and he comes up with a high-level document that is called a project charter, right? It contains high-level stuff. It contains high-level requirements, high-level scope, high-level schedule, right? Not even schedule, high-level milestones, high-level pre-approved financial resources, which later on becomes a budget, high level risk. Okay, so you have a basic document called project charter. So that gives you high level requirements that will help you plan for scope in a much more detailed manner. Okay, that is one thing. Then what other inputs do we have? We have project management plan. Okay, so what is a project management plan? See, there are totally 10 knowledge areas. Okay, for example, you have knowledge areas like scope management, schedule management, cost management, quality management, okay, resource management, risk management, procurement management. Okay, so there's a totally 10 knowledge areas, right? And all these 10 knowledge areas have plans. For example, you have scope management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, and so on. So we come with different plans with different knowledge areas and combine them into one big plan that is called as project management plan. Okay, so when you say project management plan, well, it is a combination of multiple plans. Okay, so what type of guidance does project management plan provide for scope management plan? Well, you have several plans. I can give you examples of whatever plans are used for planning for scope. Okay, so the first one is quality management plan. Okay, so why would quality management plan be important? Quality management plan is part of project management plan. Why would that be important? See, when we define a product, we should define the quality specifications for the product, isn't it? So what is quality? Quality is conformance to requirements. Okay, so when we buy a product, when we say quality, what does it mean? It has to meet our requirements. Only then you say that is quality, isn't it? Now, where do you get this requirements from? You get it from several places. For example, if this product is a regulated product, like say a pharmaceutical product, you have to go by FDA regulations, right? Or you may have some industry standards, Six Sigma, or CMMI5, so you have industry level standards, right? Or an organization may have its own internal standards, which it consistently applies to all the projects. So organization standards, right? Right. Like this, you have to talk to customers, find out what the requirements are relating to quality, and you have to build quality. And you have to come with a quality management plan. So quality management plan talks about the quality that you should build into a product. Okay. Organizational process assets. What are these? See, these are typical standard inputs for any planning process. See, for example, if you work in an organization, okay, you will be having things like organization's culture or policies, procedures. Every organization got policies and procedures, right? We have to go by the policies and procedures relating to product development, right? Then you may have historical information relating to earlier projects of similar products that you can access. Okay, these are called as organizational process assets. Every time we run a project, we create assets. These assets could be like information database, right? It could be defect database, schedule database, cost database. All these are accumulated over a period of time. So when you start planning for scope, you look into similar projects that were handled earlier, and you can use that as a sort of an input. Okay, then what else? Well, you also have another input that's called as enterprise environmental factors. What is an enterprise environmental factor? See, as a project manager, when you work in a client's place or even in your own organization, you must be acutely conscious of certain things. For example, culture. If you're working for a Japanese client, quality is a very important culture. You cannot violate culture. So you have to do a lot of Ishikawa diagrams, root cause analysis. Okay. Or if an organization extremely risk-taking culture, well, you have to take big risks. You should not mind making mistakes and learning from them. Okay, so culture is one enterprise factor, right? When you say enterprise factor, these factors are related to the enterprise. These are factors over which we as project managers do not have any control. So we have to adopt to the culture, right? Then it also means infrastructure. Let's say you have to gather requirements. Well, whatever requirements tool is available, you have to use them. Okay, at times you may not have anything, you just have to gather using word templates. So whatever is available internally, you have to use this as an input. Fine. Now let's come to tools and techniques. So what type of tools and techniques do you use for plan scope management? Expert judgment. Okay. So this is also a common tool. What type of expertise? Well, you need to have expertise in understanding the product, no? Understanding the product, understanding the domain. You need to find out people who could be training your own team members with expertise, that type of expert judgment you require, right? It could be sponsors, it could be customers, it could be anyone. Okay, fine. Then you also have another tool that is called as data analysis. Meetings with whom? See, you're defining scope, so you should find out what are the product features that this product should support. So you'll have meetings with a lot of people. You will have meetings with marketing teams, production teams, operations teams, sponsor, customers, right? So you need to have meetings so that you can plan for defining scope, right? Then data analysis. So what type of data do you need to analyze? See, if you have to define scope, you have to gather a lot of data relating to alternative ways of collecting requirements. Should I have interviews or should I have questionnaires, right? How to create a product? What are the alternative ways of creating a product? What are the alternative ways of inspecting? What are the alternative ways of gaining acceptance, validation, etc., etc. So that is called as data analysis. Fine. So now when you do this, you get output. So you have two outputs in this process. The first one is called as a scope management plan, and the next output is called as requirement management plan. Okay, so you have two plans, the one process, but two plans. Okay, fine. So scope management plan tells you how to define scope, then how to create one WBS out of this scope statement, then how to lay down approval process, how to get this scope accepted, how to deliver, how to get acceptance from customer, and so on. Okay, so scope management plan is an output. Likewise, a requirement management plan. See, what is a requirement management plan? See, you cannot just straight away go into somebody's room and start asking questions. You need to have a bit of planning. Okay, for example, you should first decide, well, which module should I focus on? So you need to have some sort of a prioritization, isn't it? Then you have to decide what approach should I have. If it is an agile project, the product owner always sits with the team. He's available all the 5 days. So you will have just-in-time requirements. If it is waterfall projects, you will have requirements, very intensive requirements at the beginning of the project, and later on it tapers down, isn't it? Right? Then you also have to gather metrics. What is a metric? For example, you have to prototype a pen, or yeah, a pen. No, you have to say what the diameter of this pen is. That is a metric. Okay, so that's an example. So how do you convert these requirements into numbers, right? Then how do you manage configuration for these requirements? So these are all the things you have in a requirement management plan. So you have to come with scope management plan and requirements management plan. Fine. So now we're going to the next process, that is collecting requirements. Okay, so what do we do here? What is a requirement actually? Requirements determines, documents, and manages stakeholders' needs in relation to a product. What should this pen do? well, this pen should write, it should support so many colors, it should be ported to so many applications. Okay, these are all the requirements that stakeholders have about a product, isn't it? So we collect requirements. That is what this process is all about. Okay, so let's see how we get the inputs, outputs, and the tools and techniques for this process. Fine. So when you say requirements, what exactly are requirements? Okay, so the basic input for this is project charter, isn't it? But before that, let me tell you what are requirements. So requirement could be business requirements. These are very high level business requirements, like we should improve our market share by 10%. We should be the market leader. The rate of efficiency should improve by 50%. Turnaround time should come down by 10%. Very high level business needs. Okay, so those are also requirements, right? Then you have functional requirements, what a particular product should do. Then you have non-functional requirements. For example, the battery should be working for 6 hours, right? Okay, there is a non-functional requirement. If you're designing a website, well, the screen should load within half a second. So non-functional requirements. Quality requirements. Quality requirements refers to what are the tests it should pass, what are the conditions against it has to be tested, right? Then project related requirements, for example, what are the milestones for this project? What are those requirements that you have to meet? Okay, like this, we have to gather a lot of requirements. Okay, so the basic input for this project charter again, that gives you high level requirement for the product, fine. Then project management plan. Why is project management plan once again an input? Okay, because project management plan is a combination of multiple plans, so that will provide you guidance on collecting requirements. Okay, then what else? We have project documents. What are project documents? See, there are two things in a project, fine. So it is either a plan or it is a document. Okay, so any document, for example, you have business case. Before you launch a project, you have business case. Business case tells you what are the high level requirements for a product. That will guide you. Okay, so then you have a plan called benefits management plan that tells you how to manage benefits. Okay, so there are a lot of project documents. So these will guide you in collecting requirements. For example, you are collecting requirement for a particular operational department for a process flow. So understanding the process flow, you have a process flow chart. Okay, that is a document. Okay, so project document is also an input, fine. Then business documents, this again is a business case. Okay, business cases tells you the initial intention for a product. It contains an initial solution vision, so that becomes some sort of an input for collecting requirements. Then agreements, what are agreements? See, agreements are the agreements that you enter into with customer. See, when you get a contract, let's say you're ABC company, you get a contract from XYZ company to deliver a product. So customer would have entered into an agreement with you. Agreement would contain a statement of work. What is a statement of work? Statement of work is a narrative description of everything that you, ABC company, must deliver as part of the project. So it contains all the requirements. So you look into agreements as to what you have to deliver. That will be the basis for collecting requirements. You have to go and talk to the stakeholders based on this statement of work and amplify the requirements in a much more detailed manner. Fine. Enterprise factors, the same thing. Whatever tools are available in industry in that particular organization, you have to use it, right? For example, requirements tool, right? Organizational process assets, you can use templates for gathering requirements that an organization gives you. Okay, these are the inputs for collecting requirements. Then what are the tools and techniques? Expert judgment. What type of expertise? See, collecting requirements, you need to have, first of all, you need to employ business analysts who are trained, who have specialized knowledge. Okay, knowledge about what? Well, they should have specialized knowledge in requirement elicitation. Then they need to have knowledge in documenting. They need to have knowledge in business, right? They need to draw basic diagramming skills. They should have basic diagramming skills like drawing use cases, okay, context diagrams, and so on. And they also need to have expertise in conducting facilitated sessions, interviews with stakeholders, and so on. So as a project manager, you have to make sure this expert judgment is brought into the project somehow, either from the same project or from some other project. You need to have expertise in all that, fine. Then data gathering, what type of data should you gather for requirements? Okay, basically it refers to requirements. So how do you gather data? You can have interviews, okay, through interviews, or you can have focus groups. What are focus groups? You have people with focused attention on specific aspects of a product. For example, you want to develop a website, you can bring all the customers and ask them to get their focused attention on this website, right? Or you can, if you have too many stakeholders running to several dozens of people, you can be conducting interviews where you can have something like questionnaires, surveys, okay. Or the organization want to live up to some industry standard, so you can use benchmarks as data. Or you want to come with a lot of creative ideas, you can have brainstorming for gathering data. So data gathering basically refers to the ways in which you'll be gathering requirements. So this could be any of these. Then data analysis. So what type of data analysis? Well, you have to analyze a lot of documents. Okay, what are documents like? Agreements with the customer, business plans, right? Then what else? Then you have a lot of process flow charts. You can, if you have to understand the process, you need to have you look into process flow charts. Then issue logs, policies of the organization, regulatory requirements, RFP that you get from your customer. So you have to analyze a lot of data in order to decide what requirements to collect. Then decision making. So let's say you collected requirements and stakeholders, you presented to the stakeholders. Fine. Now stakeholders have to take a decision. So they would have some sort of a prioritization. Which requirement is important, which is secondary in importance, right? Which comes next? They will have some sort of a prioritization, isn't it? So you have to present these to the stakeholders and they would take decisions. Normally, decisions are taken by voting. So within voting, you have unanimity. That is 100% of stakeholders may upvote, right? Or at times you may not get unanimity, you may just get majority. More than 50% agree on a particular requirement, right? Okay, or it could be plurality. In a plurality, it is not majority. Let's say you have 10 people, a group of 10, it is divided like 4, 3, and 3. So 4 is not a majority, but is a largest winning block. Okay, so these are the forms of decision making. But at times what happens is the stakeholders may nominate somebody else to take a decision that is called as autocratic decision making, delegated decision making. Okay, these are all the ways in which decision could be taken. Then you also have, you also require soft skills to conduct facilitated sessions, get information from stakeholders, right? Then data representation. How do you represent data? You can represent data using context diagrams, use cases, okay, and so on. Okay, you can also use brainstorming. What is brainstorming? You call it mind mapping. See, let's say you're gathering ideas relating to setting up of a library. You just put library and ask people to come with ideas. Somebody would give ideas relating to books. From books, somebody would give ideas relating to fiction, science, then romance, okay, then literature. Somebody else would be talking about furniture, well, different types of furniture. So this is what is called as mind mapping. Around a single concept, you organize a lot of data. Once you get all this data, you put them in some sort of a homogeneous groups, all ideas relating to books, all ideas relating to audiovisual equipments, all ideas relating to furniture, all ideas relating to parking space. Okay, so that is called as affinity diagramming. You come with mind mapping and affinity diagramming as data representation. So we have collected requirements. So what do you come up with at the end of this process? You come up with a requirement documentation, isn't it? See, you come up with a requirement documentation. See, prototype is some sort of a mock-up. Context diagram refers to use case. What is use case? When people, system, and processes interact. For example, you're a bank user. You access a banking system and a bank interacts. Okay, you have people, you have processes, you have systems interacting. So you can represent that using context diagram. You call them use cases. Then you can prototype. Okay, you have to present the prototype to the stakeholders and get a consent. What is a prototype? It is some sort of a mock-up. So failures are quite common in product development. So you have to prototype. You have to fail early and learn early. Okay, so prototype could be a working prototype, non-working prototype, paper prototype, evolutionary prototype, any prototype. Okay, so these are all the ways in which you collect requirements. Fine. Then at the end of this process, we come up with requirement documentation. Fine. And requirement traceability matrix. Okay, so what is a requirement traceability matrix? See, when you actually go to the customer to deliver scope, there are only two questions he'll ask you. Where is the requirement? Right? Let's say you came with a pen, right? this pen prototype, you're going to deliver it to him. He'll ask you, where is the requirement I gave you? So you have to cite all the requirements, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then he'll say, what are the mappings for these requirements? For that, you have what is called as requirement traceability matrix. So you have to map the requirements to high level business need. That is, you want to be the market leader. Then you may have to map this to architecture drawings, then database procedures. Then for this particular prototype, you would have done a lot of tests, test cases, test scenarios, test conditions, test results. So you have to map it through all these, and only then you're going to sign off. Okay, that is called as requirement traceability matrix. Okay, so when you collect requirements, you also stipulate what is the template in which you'll be demonstrating compliance with requirements to the stakeholders later on, so that you'll get a formal acceptance. Okay, now we have gathered requirements. So what do we do now? The next thing we do is we define scope, right? So this is a very, very important document. Okay, so what you do here in a very detailed manner, you come with a description of the project and the product. You describe what the product features are. Okay, fine. It describes the product, the service or result, boundaries and acceptance criteria. Okay, fine. What is an acceptance criteria? What are the set of conditions that you must prove in order to get this scope accepted by the customer, in order to get this pen accepted? For example, you may have to do a lot of testing. So it will stipulate all the test conditions that you have to meet in order to get this product accepted. That is called defining scope, right? So if something doesn't get into scope, it will not get into project. So you have to make sure you don't omit anything. So that way, it is a very, very important document. So what are the inputs for this process? What gets into project management plan? Okay, so again, this is a normal input. Okay, a project management plan, especially scope management plan. Okay, what is a scope management plan? It tells you how to define scope, how to control scope, how to create WBS, how to get scope accepted by customer, and so on. Okay, so that is an instrumental plan. Then project documents, whatever project documents are in inputs here. See, there is a document called assumptions log. This assumptions log contains two things. Number one, constraints. What are constraints? Constraints are limiting factors. You cannot ignore them. For example, budget is a constraint. Schedule is a constraint. Quality criteria is a constraint. Okay, you cannot violate them. So when you define scope, when you deliver a product, you have to have all this in mind. Within how much money should I complete? Within what time I have to deliver? What are the basic quality criteria I have to meet? Okay, so these are all constraints. Then you also make some assumptions about a product. Okay, so this is an example of project document. Then what are the other documents? We also came with requirement documentation. No? So requirement documentation is a basic document from which you derive a project scope, right? Then there is another document called risk register. So that also guides you in defining scope. Why? What is a risk? Risk is an uncertainty that could impact any project objective. It could be positive or negative. If it is positive, you call that an opportunity. If it is negative, you call that as a threat. So if there are any threats that could impact your scope delivery, you need to document them. You have to come with mitigants. Okay, fine. So you have to look into risk register as one of the documents. Fine. Then what else? Then you have the other usual inputs like, yeah, enterprise factors, right? So whatever tools are available, you have to use them, right? For example, you may want to have scheduling tool called Microsoft Primavera, but the organization will only give you a spreadsheet. You have to use it. Infrastructure, any tools, whatever is available, you have to use it. You cannot grumble. These are factors over which you have no control. Then organizational process assets, policies, procedures, templates for scope management. Okay, the project files from earlier projects, all these will help you in defining scope. Fine. So let's go to tools and techniques. So again, we have the same expert judgment. So what type of expertise do you require? So expertise in defining scope. Then decision making, data analysis, interpersonal team skills. So what is decision making? For example, if you have to select a product, how much of importance should you give to a product feature? For example, you want to focus on looks of a product, right? Looks, then safety, then cost, right? So how much of importance should be given to looks 2x, safety 3x, cost 1x? So you can take decisions based on some sort of a matrix like this for a product. Okay, then data analysis refers to alternative ways. For example, am I going to deliver the entire product myself, or am I going to outsource some components over which you have no core competence? Should I go for Microsoft project? Should I go for Primavera? Should I go for skilled people or semi-skilled people? Should I use tools? Should I use a combination of tools and manual processes? Okay, so you have to make a lot of alternative decisions. So data analysis is very, very important. Then interpersonal team skills. See, a lot of times while defining scope, you'll be meeting with cross-functional experts, people from design teams, people from technology teams, people from business teams, operations teams, marketing teams. So you need to make sure all of them come to an agreement on all the product-based decisions. So as a project manager, you need to have a lot of facilitation skills, soft skills, then product analysis. See, what is product analysis? See, this is unique to engineering products. In product analysis, what we do is we break down a product into smaller and smaller components. See, let us say you have a table. So what does a table have? Table has got chairs. I mean, it has got a top and it has got legs. Now, this top, should it be made of steel or should it be made of wood or should it be made of plastic? Well, it can be made of plastic if at all it is not going to withstand a huge weight. Well, it can be made of wood if it has to withstand a lot of weight. So you break down the product into smaller and smaller components and you understand what value each of these product components contribute and what is the rate at which you can buy without compromising on the quality. That is, you have to maximize value, minimize cost without compromising on quality. So this is what is called as product analysis. Okay, so you have to do this product analysis. Some people call it value engineering. Okay, systems engineering, functional analysis, whatever it is, you have to do all this in order to define a product. So this is what is called as product analysis. Fine. Then the output of this process, we come with a scope statement. Okay, fine. The scope statement is an important document. That's the most important document, right? So what does it tell us? It describes the project and the deliverables. What are deliverables? Any work products, they're all deliverables. For example, when you collect requirements, you come with requirement documentation. So requirement documentation is deliverable. Scope statement is deliverable. Gap document is a deliverable. So you come with a lot of deliverables. These are all interim deliverables. Then the final deliverable will be the pen that we're going to prototype. So it defines all the deliverables. It tells you what is the acceptance criteria. How do you get this deliverable accepted by the customer? What are the tests you have to do? What are the test results you provide him? Then what you will not do, exclusions, that is also very important. The list of what you will not do should be much, much bigger than what you will do. And that is also very difficult. If you don't document exclusions properly, you'll end up adding a lot of scope to your project, which is very difficult to manage later on. So exclusions, then constraints, what are the timelines within which you have to do? Well, what are the budget within which you have to do? All these things you have to document in a scope statement, fine? Then comes other project documents that get updated over a period of time. Now, this scope statement would actually run to hundreds of pages. Now you give a scope statement to a team member, okay, it runs to hundreds of pages. You tell him, John, why don't you start working on the project? He's a bit confused. What? I have to start working on the project? Well, I should know what I should do. So tell me what I should do. Where do I begin? So what you do is you create what is called as a work breakdown structure. Okay, I'll tell you what it is. See, so this is a process of subdividing project deliverables and project work into smaller, more manageable components. It provides you a framework. For example, let us say this is the scope statement. You first break it down into phases. For example, requirements phase, right? Then design phase, then development phase, testing phase, deployment phase. Then from this phase, you define what are the major deliverables, right? For example, requirement documentation is a major deliverable. Requirement documentation for what? Well, Reuters interface, then Bloomsburg interface, then interest rate interface, all the requirement documents, right? So you define. You come to the lowermost level, that is called as a work package. Work package or deliverable. So this is a process of decomposing work into lowermost part, that is called as a deliverable. Now you call the guys and tell them, guys, start working. They'll start working in a very feverish way. Oh, My requirement documentation is Reuters, is it? Okay, I know you address this to John. John will say, well, these are all the processes I must do. Number one, I have to do a bit of research. Number two, I have to collect requirements. Number three, I have to document requirements. Number four, I have to get a sign off. So like this, you decide, you split a work package into activities and plan how to deliver this. So this is called as create WBS. This is a very important step in scope definition process. Fine. So what do you require for creating WBS? Project management plan that tells you how to create WBS. Project documents, they are requirement documentation, scope statement, then enterprise factors, whatever tools you have available to create WBS, you must use. Microsoft Project can also be used for creating WBS, you must be familiar. Then organizational process assets, templates for WBS you can use. Okay. And the output of this process is, yeah, the tools and techniques is expert judgment. Okay, you need to have expertise to define the work, decompose the work into smaller and smaller components. Okay, that requires expertise. Then, yeah, decomposition is the process of breaking down whole project into phases, phases into major deliverables, and major deliverables into deliverables. That is called decomposition. We need to have skills relating to decomposition. Then the output is scope baseline. Okay, scope baseline means, let's say you come with a WBS, you have hundreds of work packages in a project. So this is called as a scope baseline. Okay, fine. What else do you come up with? The next thing you come up with is project documents are updated. Fine. Yeah. So that's about creating WBS. Okay, fine. So now what have we done? We have collected requirements. We created a scope statement, and from the scope statement we created a WBS. Now the WBS gives an importance, I mean gives an idea for the team members to decompose this work package into activities and plan to deliver them, isn't it? Okay, now let's go to the next process, validate scope. Okay, now we must assume that you have come up with the deliverable and you have tested the deliverable and you're placing it before the customer to get a sign off. That is called as validate scope. That is the process of formalizing acceptance of completed project deliverables. It could be interim deliverables, requirement documentation, design documentation, or it could be final deliverable, anything. Okay, so that is what is called validate scope, right? It's a process of formalizing acceptance of the completed project deliverables. It brings objectivity to the acceptance process, right? Yeah. So the project management plan tells you how to get this validation, especially scope management plan. Then you have project documents. What are project documents? See, when you go to the customer for validation, he will ask you, where is the requirement documentation? I gave you sign off. So you have to show him requirement documentation. Then we saw that we have to maintain requirement traceability matrix. We have to do a lot of testing and have to map the test results and show the test results to the customer so that he's satisfied that we have fulfilled all the requirements. So requirement traceability matrix is a document. Then quality report. We have done a lot of testing of the deliverables. So the customer is focused on what tests we did, what the test results are. Did we pass? Did we fail? If we failed, how serious this failure was? Okay, so quality report. So these are three important project documents that are essential for gaining validation. Verified deliverables. What is a verified deliverable? Who verifies it? Team members. What is a verified deliverable? See, every team member is responsible for inspecting his own work product. If I write a code, I must do unit test, system integration testing. If I gather requirement documentation, I should get a peer review. I should do a design document, I should get it peer reviewed. So whatever you do internally within the project team is verification. You verify that the deliverable is in conformity with the requirements and specifications given by the customer. And you put your stamp saying verified, which means it is complete and correct, and you can place it before the customer hand. Validate scope processes where customer gives you formal acceptance, isn't it? So you put verified deliverables into customer's hands. Fine. Then work performance data. See, work performance data is some sort of a raw data. See, there are three types of data in projects. One is called as work performance data. That is, it is raw data. For example, actual cost, actual duration, These are all raw data examples. It does not tell you what should be the data. Actual cost should be compared with planned cost. Actual cost is $10,000. Planned cost is $5,000. So after data, this is data, and you get information. Okay, so the information is minus cost variance of $500. So basically, when you validate scope, the customer will ask you for test data that you have to provide. Then with all this, what happens? The customer inspects. Who does the inspection? Customer does the inspection, right? That is, it inspects the results, right? And it takes a decision whether this sign off can be given to this product or not. That is called decision making. Fine. And the output of this process is, well, he gives a sign off and you call that accepted deliverables. And information. Data is different, information is different. Information is contextualized. For example, how many was accepted, how many was rejected, what is the amount of non-conformity, the severity of non-conformity. Okay, that is called information. Then change request. See, if the customer gives you sign off, it is fine. But if he asks you to redo, if he says some defects are there, you have to redo it, then we have to generate change requests. So change request is a formal request through which you ask for extra time, extra money, extra people, whatever it is, right? And you have a change control board in the organization that goes through a change request and approves it. Okay, so if your deliverable is not accepted by the customer, you have to do some defect repairs. For example, you have to generate change request, extra time, extra money, extra people, whatever it is, and get it approved. The project documents also get updated in this process. Okay, this is called validate scope. Now we'll go to the next process called control scope. What is actually control? Any idea what control is? See, you have a plan and you deliver something. You compare plan with actual and you see whether it delivered what you have to deliver or not. See, you have what is called as baselines. I'll tell you what a baseline is. January, February, March, April, May, right? Example. In January, you should have delivered 10 work packages. February 15, March 20, April 25. Okay, this is plan. So what was the actual that you delivered? Plan January 10, no variance. February 15, no variance. March 18, -2 negative variance. April 15, -5 negative variance. So this comparison of plan with actual is called control process. So you control scope, you compare what happened. Did I deliver? Did I over deliver? Did I under deliver? Why did it happen? You analyze it. Okay, that is called control scope. Let's analyze this process. So there's a process of monitoring the status of the project and product scope. In other words, how much have we delivered? That's all, right? What are the inputs? Project management plan. Within that, scope management plan. Project documents. What are project documents? Requirement documentation. For example, in the month of March, we are doing variance analysis. We should deliver work packages. How much have we delivered? Well, we have delivered only 20. So requirement documentation tells you where you under delivered or over delivered, right? Then requirement traceability matrix, that tells you what are the test cases you're supposed to do. Did you test for certain requirements which are not there? So did it cause any scope creep? All that you understand. Okay, project documents, fine. Then work performance data. What type of data? Like number of change requests received, number of change requests accepted, number of deliverables completed. Okay, that is called work performance data. Then organizational process assets like the policies, procedures, templates, monitoring and reporting methods for scope variance. Okay, all this. And the tools and techniques are data analysis. So under data analysis, you have what is called as variance analysis. So variance, I told you, short-term analysis, comparing plan with actual short-term. Trend analysis, there is one more tool that is called trend analysis. There is a long-term analysis. So both these are done as part of control scope. Then what else do you get? You get work performance information and change requests. So here also you can generate change requests. So that is called as a change request. Then updates to plan and updates to documents. Okay, and this is about control scope. Schedule management is an extension of scope management. In scope management, what do we come up with? You come up with the scope baseline. So what is a scope baseline? It gives you hundreds of work packages, right? Let's assume E is a work package. Now, in plan schedule management, what we do is for all these work packages, we define activities. That is, we'll take one sample work package, right? we define activities. That is, let's say this is requirement documentation. What should you do in order to deliver this? Well, you have to define activities. For example, I will do some research first. Then as I do research, I'll come with a questionnaire. Now, after research and questionnaire, I'll conduct interviews. After interviews, I will have a documentation. After that, I'll review. And after that, I'll get sign off. So when you do all these activities, this requirement documentation would be ready, isn't it? So you first define activities, then you sequence them into network diagram. What are network diagrams? It is like this: start. So first, research, simultaneously questionnaire. Both can be done simultaneously. Let's say it is 1 day, 1 day. Then after research and questionnaire, you do interviews. Let's say this is 2 days, or let's say 1 day again, right? After interview, what do? You document. That is 1 day. Then after that, you get a sign off. That is 1 day, isn't it? So what happens? This scope baseline gets converted into hundreds of network diagrams, and these network diagrams are used for developing a schedule. So what is a schedule like? A Gantt chart, isn't it? From this network diagram, we can create a Gantt chart. It is like this, you see. You come with a Gantt chart that tells you day one, day two, day three, day four, day five, day six, isn't it? So requirement research and questionnaire, they can happen on day one. Then after both these, you can go for interview. Then after the interview, you have documentation. After documentation, you have a sign off. So this way, yeah, it comes like this. Okay, so this way, out of a scope, you develop schedule. This is what scheduling is all about. Okay, fine. Then you manage schedule, you control schedule, and so on. Fine. Yeah. We'll just have a very brief overview of this process. Again, you have to have expertise in deciding how to decompose work package into activities. Fine. Then what else? Then you need to perform different types of data analysis, right? So what is data analysis? So data analysis and meetings. So meetings with different stakeholders to plan for schedule, right? Who could be stakeholders? Important stakeholders, team members themselves. Who are the best experts to decide how long it's going to take? Team members. They know how long a duration is, how long an activity is going to take, what are the risks involved in this activity, what is the contingent reserve they have to provide for the activity, everything. So team members, meeting with work package managers, meeting with schedulers. Now, all these schedules should be approved by people in the organization, isn't it? You have functional managers in the organization who will be reviewing your schedule and approving it, isn't it? So you have to have meetings with different stakeholders. The rules of performance measurement. There is a concept called earned value management. So that is actually discussed in cost management. So that tells you how to come with periodical analysis, variance analysis is fine, and let us help find where we are heading, how to come with financial forecast, how to come with schedule forecast. So those roles are mentioned in schedule management plan. So this is a process that gives you a schedule management plan. Okay, fine. Then release and iteration length. See, you have a bit of agile combined here. So it tells you what is iteration. See, in agile projects, you have time box iterations. What is a time box iteration? Well, it could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Why do you call it time box? Let's say in a particular week, you plan to do a certain amount of work. Let's say 10 user stories. You call them user stories in agile, right? Now, at the end of the iteration, you complete only 8. Now, what will happen in normal projects? If you don't complete something on time, you extend the duration. You ask for extra time, isn't it? But here, it doesn't happen. You wrap up the iteration. Whatever you did not complete, you put it back in product backlog. And if that is valuable, you pull it to the next iteration and do it. Okay. So those are called iterations. Iterations are time boxed. So the schedule management plan of an agile project tells you what should be the duration of the iteration. And each iteration will have, several iterations will constitute one release. For example, if you have a major product push, you will break it down into several iterations. Let's say you have one release. Through this, you want to have major product push, major product feature, and you plan to release it in several iterations. So iteration 1 will create something that is potentially shippable. And when you combine all the 5 iterations, you may take it out as a big product push. Now, what should be the release length? If the iteration is 1 week, a release will have 5 weeks. If the iteration is 1 month, the release will be 5 months. So these decisions also you must take as part of planning for schedule management for agile projects, right? Then reporting formats, how are you going to report your timesheets? That is about schedule management plan. Now we have to do the next process, define activities. That is, we'll break down work packages into activities. Okay, that is what is called as define activities. Fine. So this is a process of identifying and documenting the specific actions that need to be performed to produce a deliverable. You break it down into activities. Fine. So what are the inputs? Project management plan that tells you how to do the decomposition. Fine. How to break it down. Okay. Enterprise factors, culture, structure, any PMIS, any tool, right? Then organizational processes, templates that you can use. Then what are the tools and techniques? Expert judgment, how to define this type of expertise you require. Decomposition, what is decomposition? Breaking it down, right? And rolling wave planning. What is rolling wave planning? See, this is a very interesting concept. In waterfall projects, we have projects that may run for 12 months, 24 months, and so on, isn't it? We cannot plan for the entire 12 months right now. You will plan for short durations of 3 months or 2 months, whatever it is, depending on the complexity of the project. Only for this 2 months you plan in detail. So the rolling wave duration is 2 months. When you say plan in detail, what does it mean? You define work package into activities, sequence them, create a network diagram, and come with Gantt chart. So that is what is called as detailed planning. So the period up to which you have detailed planning is called rolling wave planning. So you adopt rolling wave planning as a concept. Then meetings with team members, meetings with organizational stakeholders, right? Meetings with schedulers and so on. Then output is you get a list of activities, right? That you have to deliver. Then activity attributes. What are the activity attributes? These activities have got a particular set of features. Who should do it? How long it should take? Durations. What are the costs for these activities, right? In what sequence it should be done? Which activities comes first? Which should come next? All these are called as activity attributes. Then milestone list. What are milestones? Milestones are significant events in the life of a project. For example, for a business analyst, requirement sign off is a milestone. For a product owner, date on which you have to take the product out to the market is a milestone. For a project manager, budgetary check is a milestone. So if there are any milestones attached to activities, that also you have to mention along with the activity list. Fine. Then what else? Change requests. So when you do the decomposition, you may make some changes to the plans and the plans get updated. That is what is called as define activities. The next one is sequence activities. So what do you do here? You create network diagrams. Okay, that is what I told you, isn't it? So this is a process of identifying, documenting relationships among various project activities. So project management plan that tells you how to decompose scope baseline into activities and how to sequence them. So what are the project documents you require? You require a list of activities to be sequenced, what their activity attributes are, what are the assumptions and milestones. Then enterprise factors, any PMIS. What is a PMIS? Any scheduling tool that you use or any sequencing tool that you use, right? Any work authorization system, right? If there are any government standards, you have to adopt them. Then organizational processes, project files, templates, etc., etc. You can use them. Precedence diagramming method. What is this? See, when you sequence activities, there should be some relationships between them based on should sequence. No, so this is one relationship. You call that finish to start. The next one is start to start. Start A, then start B. The next one is finish to finish. Finish activity A, only then you can finish activity B. Or you can start activity in next activity first and then only finish predecessor activity. So these are normally the 4 types of relationships you can use in coming up with network diagrams. So using these network diagrammings, techniques, you come with network diagrams. Okay. Then dependency determination. That is what we saw now, right? Then leads and lags. See, this is a lead. What does it mean? Let's say this takes 10 days and this takes 10 days. It should normally be 10 plus 10, 20 days. but you are introducing lead in success activity, let's say by 5 days. That is, it'll reduce the duration by 5 days. It becomes 15. So lead has the effect of reducing the duration. Lag refers to delay. Okay. See, both this is start to start. This will take 10 days. This will take 10 days. So both should end on 10 days. But you've introduced a delay of 5 days in the next activity. So to that extent, it gets extended to 15 days. So that is called as lag. So when you come with network diagrams, you have to use leads and lags. Fine. Then you come with network diagrams. There is an output, and you also update different project documents. Okay. Now we came with network diagrams. You must decide, you should get a confirmation about who will be working on these activities, and based on that productivity you have to come with durations. Okay, so that is called estimate activity duration. Fine. So this is a process of estimating the number of work periods needed to complete individual activities. So what are the inputs? Project management plan. Okay, then project documents. For example, you are going to come with duration estimates for what? List of activities, the assumptions about productivity you have, right? If you assume that you're going to get an experienced people, you can plan to do it in 10 days. Inexperienced, 5 days. Semi-skilled, 7 days. So the assumptions you make. Milestone, project team. If there are any milestones, well, the activity should end on that milestone, isn't it, right? Well, the project team also tell you what type of duration you can plan for. Okay, fine. Then enterprise factors, for example, productivity metrics. What are the productivity of team members? They'll decide the duration. Okay, and so on. That's an example. Then comes organizational processes, historical duration. This is information of the earlier projects which you can use. Project calendar. What is a project calendar? See, if an organization has, if a project is running on 2 shift, you'll have 2 project calendars. 3 shift, 3 calendars. So you have to plan for schedules in all the calendars, isn't it? Then scheduling methodology. You have precedence diagramming method, activity on node, activity on node. So many methods, critical path, critical chain. Okay, you can decide what has to be applied. Fine. Yeah, tools and techniques will be expert judgment. It is a common tool and technique. Okay, right? Likewise, analogous estimating. Yeah, see, it is like this. When you start a project, you'll have analogous estimating. What is analogous? You take an earlier project as an example. Based on that, you come with estimate, right? Then as you start planning for the project, you go for parametric estimating, a bit more detailed. You've completed one phase, you're going from one phase to the next phase. So based on the project performance of the current project, you have an estimating that is called as parametric estimating. Then once you've understood the work package very well and you decompose into activities, you have bottom-up estimating. So these are the estimating types: analogous estimating, parametric estimating, then 3-point estimating. Okay, 3-point estimating is nothing but bottom-up estimating. That is, you have to take pessimistic, optimistic, most likely durations, and you have to combine with an average. You can come with an average. Okay. Then for this, you also have meetings. Fine. Data analysis. Okay, you have to analyze different data relating to productivity, team members' competencies. Okay, and so on. Okay, so that is data analysis. Then finally, what happens? We come with, yeah, decision making. So once you come with duration estimate, well, the work package managers would be meeting the project manager, and the project manager would be settling these budgets, isn't it, timelines. So that is called as decision making. Fine. So bottom up estimating is where you know the activity level information and you work it upwards. Okay, from work package to upwards. That is called bottom up estimating. Okay. Then finally, you come up with duration estimates for each activity. Okay, for each work package, right? Let's say requirement documentation, that is one work package, right? Well, that will take 30 days. You come with duration estimates. Fine. What else? You also come with basis of estimate. This is a very important document. When you came with 30 days estimate, you must say on what basis you came with this estimate. Was it analogous? What is parametric? What is bottom up? What is the plus or minus you assumed? For example, when you say I can complete the work in 10 days plus or minus 2, what does it mean? I can complete the work in between 8 days to 12 days, isn't it? So the range in your estimates, confidence level in your estimates, all these are documented in basis of estimate. It is not enough if you come with an estimate. You must also say on what basis you came with this estimate. Okay, then what else? Project documents will get updated in this process. Yeah. So we have developed schedule. No, and we have estimated durations for different network diagrams. We have to combine all these network diagrams and we have to develop one big schedule for all the work packages combined. Okay, this schedule is for the project as a whole, right? Fine. So, oh, I'm sorry. This is a process of analyzing activity sequence, duration, resource requirements, schedule constraints to create a project schedule. What does it mean? That is, you came with network diagram that told you what the sequence is. Then for these activities, you decide the durations. Then you also decide who's going to be working on this activity, John or Jack or Jill. And you also contain constraints like within how much time this work should be completed. So you consider all this and you develop a schedule model. So what does a schedule model contain? It contains start dates, end dates, and who's going to be the resource using this, performing this activity. And if the resource is going to consume steel, cement, how many kilos of steel, cement is going to consume? Everything relating to activities. Okay, they are all combined to develop a schedule. So project management plan is an input, especially schedule management plan that tells you how to schedule, right? Then project documents like activity list, activity attributes, assumptions log. We have discussed all this, no? Okay, right? So this is the scheduler's job, right? Agreements. What does agreement contains? Agreement contains the dates by which you have to deliver to the customer. Is it not important to consider that? Of course. Okay, fine. You have to meet the contractual stipulations. So with all this, and also enterprise factors, whatever scheduling tool is there in the organization, they have to use it, right? Then scheduling methodologies, project calendars. These are all default project calendars, right? You have to use them as inputs. Then what are the tools and techniques? You do network analysis, right? That is, what is analysis? You combine you analyze all the activities. You understand if the activities are sequenced properly, that the duration is correct. All that you analyze, right? Then you apply critical path method. What is a critical path method? Determining the duration of the project schedule. Okay, applying critical path method. You determine when the work should start, when it should end. Fine. Then you have a lot of data analysis relating to durations, risks, costs, okay, etc., etc. Resource optimization. What is resource optimization? See, when you come with a schedule, it may say you'll complete the project in 12 months. But the customer might say, no, I want it in 9 months. So what should you do? You have to somehow extract some 3 months out of the schedule. So there are a lot of techniques like fast tracking that's doing activities in parallel instead of one after the other, or putting more number of people, making them work overtime and doing the job before time. So there are a lot of techniques that you have to adopt in order to complete the project on time. Okay, at times you'll find that resources are over allocated. For example, John is the only guy, but you allocate him 16 hours of work. So you have to level his utilization to 2 days from 1 day, right? So these are all the techniques that you adopt in order to develop a schedule, right? And any information tool, the leads and lags that we saw earlier, then schedule compression. That is what I told you. Schedule compression refers to if the activities can be done this way, 10 days, 10 days, you see if it is possible to do it simultaneously. So you can do this in 10 days. Okay, so schedule compression. Then agile release planning. This is for agile. Okay, you have to plan for the releases for agile, right? And you come with a schedule baseline. So what does a schedule baseline contain? It tells you when the activity should start, and when it should end. It should start in January, it should end in March. And the actual schedule will be compared against this baseline. You will have variances. So baseline is maintained for comparison purpose, schedule baseline, fine. Then project schedule, okay. Then schedule data, any data relating to schedule, like optimistic estimate, pessimistic schedule, optimistic schedule, project calendars where this schedule would be implemented, right? Then yeah, project calendars, plan updates, change requests. This is a very change intensive process. So change requests are quite common. Okay, so that's about develop schedule process. Then finally, we have a process called control schedule. So here we make sure we complete the project on time. So you analyze what are the variances, why these variances happen, why did the schedule slip? Is it because you did not get materials on time, or was it because of poor material quality we could not conduct, or there was over planning, under planning, overutilization, underutilization? So you look into why these variances happened. Fine. So plan is an input, project documents, they are inputs, organizational process, any control tools, they are inputs, reporting methods are inputs. Okay. Then work performance data. Okay, which activity has started, which has not started, which has ended, right? Then tools and techniques, you analyze data relating to schedule, find out why variances happened, where did you under deliver, where did you over deliver, why did you utilize more time, what is the problem with our planning, did we under plan, over plan, was it wrong in coming up with assumptions relating to durations, you analyze, right? Then critical path method, then PMIS, any scheduling tool, and resource optimization. What is resource optimization? For example, I told John might be allocated 16 hours of work. So you make sure he does it in 2 days. That is called optimization. Fine. And what happens in this process? Just a moment. Schedule compression. I told fast tracking, doing activities in parallel, right? Then leads and lags can be employed. Lead will have the effect of advancing an activity, isn't it, right? If you advance a successor activity, it'll reduce the duration of the project, isn't it? Then you come with information, why there is a slippage, right? Then schedule forecast. It is not only enough if you come with the schedule. I mean, you should get, for example, well, this is the start date, end date. No, now there is a variance. Now, if the variance continues, what will be the actual schedule? Will we be able to complete the project in 9 months, or do we require 12 months? That is called schedule forecast. That is based on information that tells you why this particular variance happened. Okay. Then change request. So definitely you will make some changes. You will avoid this variance happening again and again. Why did this variance happen? Well, we thought that we could do something in 10 days, but we actually took 20 days. That is why this variance happened. Why did it happen? Because poor planning. We overestimated productivity. So I'll make corrections to my assumptions, and next time this variance won't happen. I'll ask for extra time. Okay, they are called as change requests. Then updates to plan and updates to project documents. Yeah. So that's about schedule management. So see you all then. Thanks for being with me. Have a great day. Goodbye. Good luck.